How are you? Good to see you, Jim. Jim Andrew is the Executive Vice President and the Chief Sustainability Officer for PepsiCo. You've been in this role, I think, since 2020, Chief Sustainability Officer since 2020. You joined Pepsi in 2016. I was asking where you're from. You said you're from Chicago. I said, where do you live? And you said, I'm traveling all the time. So I know the feeling a little bit. It's really great to have you here. I'd love to hear a little bit about from you, as we've just done with the farmers and with Anna and with Rodrigo. Tell us a little bit about how you came to be Chief Sustainability Officer for one of the biggest companies on the planet. But how did you get there, and what was sort of the thing that brought you to this moment?
Yeah, it was never on my career plan, but I've never had a career plan, so that's okay. It was really, I'm a business guy. I'm a strategist. I've run big businesses in PepsiCo and others. But the chance to, under our current CEO, Ramon Laguarta, he asked me, hey, you helped me build this strategy. Now I want to put sustainability, and PepsiCo's been working in the area of water and agriculture and all for many years, decades. But I really want to put it right in the middle of the strategy we just got done building, and you're the guy. And I don't know if I was being told or asked, but it was a great opportunity to be able to do something really important at a company and for a leader that really cares. So that's how I got there. I've never looked back. But really, at PepsiCo, we really said, how do we put sustainability squarely in the center of the strategy for the company? So it's been a great ride.
I'm going to say something mildly cheeky. Bill Anderson, the CEO of Bayer, is also the Chief Sustainability Officer. So maybe that's a positive omen for you in your future career.
I think PepsiCo's well set. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get you in trouble. What are you looking for yourself from this COP? When you're thinking about like what's being discussed and where the negotiations are headed? What are you really hoping from in a couple of weeks when it wraps up?
Well, I think it's been said by the previous panels, which is it's a unique opportunity for a country, a presidency, to put agriculture, bioeconomy, food systems, and the things related around it, around agriculture, regenerative agriculture, water, squarely in the center of the climate discussion and in negotiations. So that to us, people think of PepsiCo as a very large beverage company, and of course we are, but we're actually a much larger food company. We're about 60% food. So for us, agriculture and all the things around it is a core part of how we are successful and sustainable as a business over time. And so for us, this COP is particularly exciting for all those reasons, because it really takes something that's critical to us, critical to the world for the reasons Rodrigo said, can be part of the solution, and puts the agricultural food system, and importantly, as Eleni said, farmers squarely in the center of the discussion.
Yeah, you've said previously that the global food system is increasingly fragile and at risk. So, and your company, I guess, is sourcing 50 crops from 60 countries. So, what is it that makes you keeps you up at night? What's the thing that makes you most concerned?
I generally sleep pretty well, fortunately. But I think, farming is a tough business. And as Eleni said, it's a business, right? Farmers get, depending on the farmer, somewhere between 30 and 40 times in their life to have it work well or not have it work well. They get generally one shot a year, a couple of areas too. So it's a high risk profession, if you think about it that way. And there's always been weather and all sorts of extraneous events, but 100-year storms are happening a lot more frequently than 100 years. Extreme weather events are accelerating in many parts of the world. Wet places are getting wetter, dry places are getting drier. So the need for resilience, the need for from our standpoint, supply security, but from a farming standpoint, resilience in the ability to deal with the increased shocks that many farmers are experiencing are absolutely critical. And I think that's what keeps me up at night, because if farmers can't successfully grow crops, we don't have a business. I mean, in Brazil alone, last year we sourced 450,000 tons of agricultural commodities. So we're a big company, and we work with 300,000 farmers in our direct and indirect supply chains. We have them in there, and so we need farmers to keep farming. We need farmers to be successful, not only for our business but for the world.
So what does regenerative farming mean for PepsiCo? So when you say a potato farm or a cornfield is regenerative, what are the practices that the farmers have introduced?
Well, I think Rodrigo and Eleni did a good job at starting to detail some of them, and we've got a whole set we work with. Again, I always say this is a team sport. And so we work with a lot of different organizations, Bayer and Brapa, many farmers around the world like Eleni, to really define and determine what's going to work best on an individual farm. All farming ultimately is local. And if you ask any farmer, they'll say, my farm is completely different than any other farm on the planet. And at some level, they're correct, but obviously there's some similarities. And so it's regenerative farming is a set of practices that work well for a given farmer in a given location or micro location with a given cropping system that they recognize will actually help their business, will help them be more resilient, more successful at farming. And again, we heard some great examples of more productive, lighter environmental footprint, more resilient. So there's a whole set of practices. What's more important than what's on the list and what's not is what are those practices that a farmer is going to say, these help me right here doing what I need to do to be successful as a farmer. So yeah, there's plenty of lists, but ultimately it's the practices that work for a farmer, which is why they need technical support and peer support in addition to financial support to be able to make some of these transitions and change how they farm.
How do you, as a big company, how do you convince them to change? Is it you set standards and you sort of green list, or you have punishments? I don't know. How do you actually convince, or is it more by sort of trying to kind of show by example and have different education programs? What's the most effective, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, but farmers trust and learn from other farmers best. And so, you heard Eleni talk about a network she's in that's I think she said it was global. We have PepsiCo, we have 55 global demonstration farms. Rodrigo talked about the amount of information and data they've collected here working with him. Brapa, we've done the same thing. So it's really about how can you bring trusted support. Yes, it's data for sure, but it's also peer-to-peer. It's going to a demo farm and seeing on that farm, which looks a lot like mine, this is actually working and somebody's done it. It's being able to have the academic support. Some farmers, that resonates. But ultimately, it's farmers talking to farmers and demonstrating that these things really work. Because again, think about from a farmer standpoint, I'm only going to get maybe 40 shots at this. So I need to know it's going to work. And the best way to do that is talking to another farmer. So we work with farmers, test plots, demo farms, and also what I call hyper-local implementers or trusted organizations that have been in the community for often decades who bring that knowledge, but also that trusted relationship. Your father and my father went to school together. Yours been farming, I've been farming, it's come down. I trust you. You show me, you've got support from a couple of companies, there's some okay, now I'm going to go try that new practice. That's the kind of adoption model that works best. Honestly, it's probably the only adoption model that actually works at all, but certainly the one that we found.
It's kind of what Anna was
best.
saying in the first panel, is like you have to feel it, you have to see it, otherwise it's just...
right, exactly.
Yeah. So in order to kind of make some of these changes that we're talking about, what do you need to see from government or financial institutions or other companies? Like, what is it that you think is kind of needed to make some of these changes towards regenerative agriculture?
Well, the food system is a dynamic, interconnected set of partners that go from end to end, farm to fork. One example, one way to characterize it, and I, we're here in Brazil. I think about it as a football team. There's a whole set of individual players, and they all have their part. Some are trying to put the ball in the net. Some are trying to make sure the other team doesn't put the ball in the net. You've got referees to make sure that the rules are fair and that they get enforced. So there's a whole set of players. What we need is, I think, two things. One, everybody to play their part, but to play their part and not try and play somebody else's. So the defenders, occasionally are going to score a goal, but usually they need to stay back and make sure that the other team does it. I think the same thing is true for players in the ecosystem. But ultimately, I think the most important thing is we need to get better aligned around what it is we're trying to do. And in this case, I would say it's we know what practices work, and we know that regenerative agriculture works. And again, you heard it from Eleni. And people say, well, how do you know it works? And I'll tell you how you know it works. Farmers do it. Farmers adopt. Last year, PepsiCo, we had 3.5 million acres around the world of acreage that farmers who grow for us have adopted regenerative practices on. They don't do that because it's interesting. They do that because it helps them farm. And again, you heard Eleni. So we know what works. The question is, how do we adopt these practices at scale, at a much, much more larger scale than we have, and also at an accelerated rate. It's not about getting faster, it's about getting faster. It's the second derivative for the statistical folks in the room and on the video. We have to get much better aligned around the goal, and the goal is not what does any individual player do. The goal is win the game. And in the case here, I think it's about how do we create a more resilient food system? How do we adopt regenerative practices at scale, farmer by farmer, in a way that works for them, helps them be more resilient, have a lighter environmental footprint, and be able to withstand the climate checks, while at the same time, as we said, grow more on the acreage, the hectares that we have, because the world needs more food. So it's those things. But we all need to get lined up around that. And right now, whether some governments are, some aren't. Financiers haven't built purpose-built industrial strength transition products and instruments to actually help do that. I mean, a farmer that has adopted regenerative practices is more resilient, lower risk, and generally going to have higher yields. That's a bankable proposition, and yet there's far too little financial engineering, and I say that positively, financial engineering going at how do I develop specific instruments that will help farmers like Eleni make that transition. Also, smaller farmers, the very largest farmers often have the capability, but there's a whole set of farmers that need that financial help. Companies like us, like Bayer, like others, we can only fund so much out of our, and we're a very large funder of those things, but we need the entire ecosystem to get much more aligned, and that's where governments, financiers, NGOs, all can step up and play a bigger part, as well as the companies that aren't doing things today.